Welcome to another live episode of Oak and Rock Fatherhood. I am your host, Zachary Small, joined by Anthony Migliorino. And today we have a special guest. We have veteran, husband, father, FoE Team Leader, Colton. Colton, welcome to the show. What's going on, brother?
Not much. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
I'm happy to have you on, man. The world needs to see more of what we are doing behind our walls. The world needs to see more bearded men doing masculine things, taking charge of the direction of their life. And that's exactly what we're talking about here. But before we dive into the emergency actions parents and families can take, Colton, you want to tell us a little about yourself and where you're coming from?
I'm a dad. I have 4 kids. In that journey, I've learned a lot around what you guys do. The peaceful parenting side, the dad improvement side. Taking all of that seriously, being a good example, being able to connect and communicate my mission and guide my family, in the right direction, if you will. Most of anything that I've been involved with within FoE and our kind of world has been centered around mostly me and heading that direction, but it ultimately ties to being kind of the Oak and Rock
taking over the world
and always getting better at that, and not leaving certain areas untouched or untended to, I guess.
On to Anthony.
Yeah, man. Nah, bro. I've known Colton for almost 3 years now, and I've seen him grow. I've seen a lot of men inside FoE grow, and I think that's a big part of the discussions why we have them. Is we want to see men get better, get stronger. We want to see fathers improve, and I think ultimately, if we do a good enough job at this, there wouldn't be a need for us to have this show. And there would be no emergencies, right? We wouldn't have to talk about things like this and what should we do and how should we go about it, because we would be all squared away. I wouldn't say we had the answers, but we wouldn't worry. We wouldn't have this fear controlling us. We wouldn't be turning on the TV or talking to our neighbors and thinking all this bad stuff is about to happen. We have no control. What could we do? A lot of the men that I talk to on a daily basis, they have control of their life. When bad things happen, they adapt, they make moves, and they better themselves and they better their families. Right? They're never a victim. They're never getting stuck when the world is chaotic.
When I hear that and when I think about the work that we've been doing, earlier we had Brenda Murata on. So we've been having some great discussions rolling, and that episode is going to be dropping next Monday. So check that out. It was a great, great discussion, but it was about normalizing the discussion on fatherhood. And I have the Emergencies Act definition up. And unless you live on a rock, you know that Canada, their Prime Minister, Justin Trudeau, he went out and he implemented the Emergencies Act against that convoy that they had, the blockade, those banging the drum for freedom and to get rid of the COVID lockdowns, because they're absolutely unnecessary. And a leader listening to his people and fighting for his people would never turn on them. But that's what we saw happen. And I watched it happen. And while the world is banging the drum, we need Trump, we need freedom, we need this. I'm thinking, how many families are being impacted by this? How many families thought it would never come to this? And so they never thought of either preparing for it or taking that same stance within their home and giving themselves the power that the government has. If the government can turn and do some wild shit, why can't you in your home turn and do some wild shit, taking control over the direction of your life? If the government is saying they're allowed to take control over you, you at least could control yourself. And in doing so, you would strip them of their power because you would be in charge. You would know where you're going, why you're going, and what you're doing. And so I wanted to hit that definition first. The Emergencies Act authorizes the federal government to take extraordinary temporary measures to respond to public welfare, public order, international, and war emergencies. So in certain situations, they're allowed to take more extreme measures of control, quote unquote, for the good of the people. And so I peeled that back a little. It's bullshit. I have zero defense for it. But let's look at that from the angle of families. COVID hit, the world shut down, things that we thought were not possible happened. America stopped. Jobs were shut down, businesses were shut down, economy was shut down, the world came to a halt, travel ceased. These things we never thought possible, they happened. How many parents were ready for that? Not a single one. We've never seen this in our lifetime. Things are fucking extraordinarily different and weird. Now is the perfect time for us to invest in our lifelong change. Instead of temporary changes, lifelong commitment to never being caught off guard again. Relying on a system that will turn its back on you. Putting yourself in a position where you are not able to make moves. You're trapped in the job. You're trapped to your debt. You're a slave to whatever it is that's holding you under. You're not allowed to move. You're not allowed to leave your profession. You're going to take, possibly actions that will impact your health because you want to keep a paycheck, because you're not in a position, you don't have a network, you don't have anybody that you can speak to. Oh, and on top of all of this, your children can't go to school. And so now your house is stressed out, your spouse is stressed out, and you're trying to figure things out, saying either you're losing your job or you've got to take your job, but you've got to get jabbed to keep it. And you've got to compromise on the integrity of your person in order to keep the status quo going. Now is the perfect time for us to have this discussion on ways we can position ourselves and we can take possibly extraordinary measures to improve ourselves and our family. And so we're going to dive into that tonight. If you have questions on it, make sure you drop them in the chat. We're going to be tracking that. If you have any topics we want discussed or angles taken on it that you want us to dive deeper into, again, throw that into the chat. But we're going to be rolling. So we've got these two men here. We've got Anthony, we've got Colton, all of us family men, all of us operating within the same environment as everyone else. Yet I've seen these two men thrive while I've watched others barely survive. And so we'll dive into a few things that we did, a few of our emergency acts, the actions that we took as parents, as husbands, and especially as men, because that's the foundation of all of this. You have to be a man who can withstand this. So we're going to share what we did, and then you can either take notes from that, or you can replicate it and do your version of it. And you can get yourself out of it, because COVID's not going away. None of this is changing. The world's getting weird. Some parts are up, some are down. It doesn't matter. The world is not going back to pre-COVID land. And so we've got to find a way to operate in this environment and position ourselves to never being caught off guard again. And that's going to require to take some emergency actions. So that is what led to this episode. So when COVID first hit, things started getting weird. Things started shutting down. What were some of the things that allowed you? I mean, and again, I watched the both of you just continue to crush. Things got weird, but you crushed it. What was actually, Colton, you go first. You're the guest. I'll get you in the hot seat. What were some of the things you did to keep the kids grounded, to keep you and your spouse, instead of going at each other's throat, supporting one another? How did you have a good time in COVID when the rest of the world fell apart?
Actually, it was kind of the whole COVID period is kind of a fond memory for us now. Actually, like that's part of it is being within FoE. We get a little ahead of the game, and I think that actually contributed to some maybe advanced notice. Guys are in other circles, I might not be so tied into, so I got information a little bit earlier. But seeing the writing on the wall, and the preparations for it, like this thing's coming, it's looking really bad. What do you do? Like I grew up in the South where there's hurricanes and stuff. You know it's coming all the time. You prepare for it. You got to have certain things. You're going to be cut off guard. Stores and all that are going to be, they're going to blow up. Things are going to remove from the shelf. So some of the first things we did were, tackle those areas. But the other aspect of it that I think is somewhat important is communicating that stuff to your kids. Like what's going on? Dad doesn't just disappear and go to the store and come back with a bunch of crap, because nothing's happening. So it was important for me to have those conversations with them and let them know what's on the horizon, what you're looking at. Like, I'm a little bit with managing stress and their anxiety over it, but, communicating it kind of at their level so that they have an awareness of what's going on. It's not the other side of that coin is the, not knowing what's going on, but Dad's doing some weird stuff that he doesn't normally do.
It's interesting. You started out with community. You knew what was coming because, again, you had a network of men, several on the front lines who were dealing with this, political side of the house, military side of the house. So they're getting first word of, hey, something's happening. Imagine if you didn't have any idea, though. And doesn't that play to the point? Men need connection. Men need to be in a network of people who are doing things. It's not just smoke cigars and shoot guns, which is awesome. Yeah, let's freaking do that. But you also have a network where intel is shared. You have a network where connections are made and like, hey man, I'm really good at preparation. Or somebody else like, hey man, I'm really good at business. And I'm reading the finances and all the papers are saying we're preparing for a drop. Start moving your money now. You were making moves. I mean, all three of us were making moves before the bottom fell out because we were all talking, we were all sharing, exchanging things. And there's nothing secretive being shared here. And we've been very publicly open about, hey, what we're doing within FoE. We are working together to position ourselves and our families to capitalize in all areas of life. We're looking to be stronger, healthier, wealthier, everything in between, and more connected as men to other men. I hope that's not lost on people listening, because if the lone wolf is dying, they have no one to rely on. They're getting caught off guard.
Yeah, the other side of that, without that network is relying on news and maybe stuff I would source, in the media or whatever.
Reliable.
This is a reliable, trustworthy, network. It's not, a game of telephone or CNN, like these other sources that are rather speculative. These are guys I trust. But in saying all that, it paved the way for, to ride this storm out rather, smoothly after everything was coming, and, everything that was expected to probably happen kind of did. And maybe some of it got a little worse or whatever long term, but being where I am, I my home is on a few acres. Being prepared, like, that was the part that became a kind of a nice memory afterwards was, we have to work at home. We had all the supplies we need. I had enough forewarning to, pull out more cash than I might normally have on hand. And the rest of that was, a lot of that time was my kids doing stuff outside. Me and the wife are sitting around the fire. I'm smoking a cigar. Like, lockdown wasn't really that bad outside of what you would normally expect to be able to go do that you might not be able to do, but we didn't need to do,
Yeah, I could see you sitting down in a backyard, Colton, smoking a cigar at the fire pit, saying, "Bring it, let's go. Whatever you have to throw at me."
Yeah, like it wasn't really that bad, but the other side of that, it could have been. I mean, and I'm sure a lot of people experienced, this side of it of not having the emergency preparations around. It was hard to go to a store. There was stuff not on shelves, like that's something that I didn't want to have to experience, and I'm glad I didn't have to deal with. But growing up where I did, it's 2 days before a hurricane and people are surprised it's still coming, and they're trying to get water and they're trying to do these things for their family, but they can't. So I've kind of kept a lot of that mindset around and having basic stuff anyways. Power goes out, weird stuff like that happens, but those are things, especially when you have a family, that they kind of got to be in the back of your mind. You kind of got to be ready for.
Yeah, no, I
Anthony,
think
good.
No, I was going to say, I think the storm analogy, or getting ready for a hurricane, I think that's perfect. Right? It's a good example that as a man, as a father, if you didn't see this coming, you need to wake up, right? You need to reassess the world that you live in and stop trusting the bullshit powers that be. I mean, this has been going on for years, for decades, for centuries. You have to see the signals. You have to read the signs. You have to see what's going on, and you can't just take things for granted. So if you're somebody who you find yourself between a rock and a hard place now after all this happened, you need to level up even more, right? Because I don't want to say I've been talking about it, but I've been having these conversations about being prepared for overreach of government, being prepared for economic fallout, right? Just like in 2008. When COVID hit and things changed, I had a completely different perspective on what was going on. It was the first time in my life where I didn't feel guilty about not going to work. I was like, you know what? Who cares? Right? There's more important things right now. And I threw my family in the RV. We drove all around the Southeast, and we said, let's go find a different place to live. So for me, it was, I don't want to say it was cool, but it was like, man, this is the moment. This is the opportunity, right? I can finally get away from high taxes and really bad policies and crazy people, and I can go down south. I can find some peace. I can find a home where I can be proud to spend my days. And that's how I was thinking about things. I wasn't like, oh my God, what am I going to do? How am I going to handle this? You know, and I would say even during those times, which was even better for me, because I didn't have time off from work. I was a workaholic. I worked all the time, 100 hours a week. You know, it was what you had to do to survive in the environment that I was in. That was the first time that I got to go to the gym with my kids. I taught my daughter and my son how to weightlift, how to do good form, how to eat healthy. And like these are all things that we built on while everybody was talking about masks and where they can go and where they can't go, and you know who they can touch, and living in bubbles. And we were continually taking advantage of the opportunity that, you know, we had time together. We were able to build better on the family. We were able to strengthen our bonds. So now, as I reflect back on and I look where we're at, it's that amount of growth that my kids got in those 2 years is insane. You know, how well off they are when a lot of people are struggling. And I don't want to say to brag, but like I said earlier, man, you need to wake up. You need to start taking ownership of your life and control of what you do, how you spend your time, and make sure that the things you're doing, they're actually pushing you to get better. If there's an emergency or a disaster or not, right, that should always be the mission. What were you gonna-
No, I was going to say, the men who are constantly talking about preparation, the men who are constantly talking about, let's do this, I'm doing the work, I'm grinding, I'm hustling, man. When this hit, they were fucking pumped because it was finally here. The thing they were ready for. They were ready with the food. They were like, I got the guns, I got the ammo, my security system's up, let's go. Their family's rocking, they got them home, they're having a great time. Those men were amped. They're probably disappointed at it being a whole nothing burger and it's just trying to like government overreach. But that's the thing. You see a lot of abundance when the sun is shining. Think about how many accounts went radio silent when this shit hit. A lot on social media. They're back now. Bible course, bruh. Abundance, bruh. No. When shit hit the fan, you weren't abundant. You were scarce as fuck. You know, and there's a lot of them. You know, there's a great flex to have, but we're talking about actualized growth. And so in this, the way I see it, it's almost like witnessing an abusive relationship. We're sitting here, we're like, guys, the government is not on your team. Oh, they love me. They'll take care of me. They're literally beating the shit out of your country. They're beating the shit out of your economy. They're trying to jab your kids. They've stripped you of the decency of showing your fucking face, but only in certain parts. You know, go to Florida, people are no mask, they're partying. Go to the Super Bowl, no mask, they're partying. Go to New England elementary school, and kids are choked out with masks. Why? Why are we thinking it's okay for certain people to follow certain rules and not others? Why do we think the good guys are the ones who are shutting everything down and destroying everything? You know, and in that, we talk about taking an extraordinary act, an extraordinary parental act. I think the best extraordinary act you can take is to finally break up and walk away from that abusive relationship. I think it's time we empower these men and women and families to walk away from their abuser, which is the United States government, the Canadian government, the English Parliament, or the UK. I'm not sure how their system works.
The redcoats.
You walk away from it, you know. And if we're going to start with, well, what act? You know, before we hit record, we were like, all right, you know, obviously we want to get men healthier. Like, take the extraordinary act of getting jacked during this time. You know, getting sober. There's a lot of little actions you can take, but the main first one is to understand that you are the only one that is in control of the direction and experience you have in life. And if you keep thinking you need permission to move, to change your job, to stop following unnecessary and unproven methods to handling this shit, if you think somebody's going to come and save your day, or they're going to give you permission to go back to the life you had before, you're out of your fucking mind. That's some Stockholm syndrome shit. And so when we say, and this video will probably never make it because we're saying this, you know, we've already had a few videos not make it to the light of day, but let's say the truth. When we take our sovereignty, when we take back control of our life, when we take back control of our finances, the government gets pissed. They do not want that. They do not like that. And a lot of your fellow citizens, your countrymen and women, also get pissed off. And so when people got pissed that Trudeau, sent in the troops and they're literally stomping people with horses, like literally like kneeing people and just beating the shit out of people for their own good because they're protesting tyranny. Let's look at the reverse. These people will get mad at you for daring to say, I want to be free. I want to be as free from the system as I can possibly be. I want to get rid of the debt. I want to get rid of my reliance upon the healthcare system, which is going to tax me to oblivion. We had that discussion with Brendan Murata. Again, shout out to him. That you blew my mind today. But he was talking about how the system designed to just get you to pay and feel pain. The trauma and pain and money. Trauma, pain, money. That's supposed to be your cycle. You're supposed to be controlled. You're supposed to be in pain. You're supposed to be paying the system. If you're good, that means you've worked your way up to a position where you're paying 30% or more of your cash to the government. What a great life. And when you're about to die, we'll let you have like 10 years out to pasture. Are you fucking kidding me? That's people's direction. They're not enjoying the process. They're not enjoying their life. They're literally just a cog of the wheel. And when somebody decides to say, hey, get out of the gears and come walk with me and be free in this field, just kind of live your life and do your thing and position yourself to go and just thrive and actually enjoy your experience, people get pissed. How dare you live your life? We're not allowed to do that. You're not allowed to go to the gym, Anthony. Be a good man. Go back to work. Be a good father. Go back to the job. Be a good husband. Pay your taxes and bring home a paycheck. That's what you're supposed to do. And if you don't do that, well, now you're making me look bad because I have to do that. And that's not fair that you get freedom. But they never say, hey, but I can be free too. They never say, hey, Anthony, could you show me how to do that? And I think that is where we start. I think that is the crux of this discussion. I think that is where we should be headed. I think people watching this should say, hey, I see what you have. I want what you have. I'm not less than because I don't have it yet. I think that's where men get stuck. When they don't have as much freedom or as much control over their time, maybe they have a really busy job. They feel like they're not as good of a man. And so they see somebody like you, Anthony, they're like, oh, that guy, there's something wrong with him. I've got to be right. They look at Colton. No, you didn't have a good time at COVID. You're supposed to be miserable. I'm not a bad guy. You are. You're fucked up. Well, what if I don't know if it's an ego thing or pride thing. I'd love for one of you guys to let me know. Because maybe I'm just missing it. But if we could get them to swallow and be like, hey, Colton, I want to have a good time with my family. Hey, Anthony, I want to be more free. Could you show me that? I don't feel inferior by saying that. I feel like that's how I elevate. That's how I learn. But how many men are afraid to do that because of the perception that it means I'm not man enough?
No, and I would honestly love for somebody to ask me those questions, like of the superficial bullshit that we talk about. Like those would be great things to help another guy out. But I think they have a lot of fear, and they turn to negative, kind of like the hater mentality side of things. Going through COVID, working from home, really super busy year at work. My boss, other people that I work with, some of them have families and don't, but their mentality was, well, we're stuck at home, we might as well work. So for me saying no, like I have a family, I have things to do. Like even though I'm stuck at home, like this isn't my thing to do. And I was looked at like I was the asshole. Like, yeah, I want to go out and ride 4-wheelers with my kids, or do nothing and sit around the fire and have a cigar. Like there's plenty of other things for me to do. This isn't my thing. And I kept like pushing back to that message. Like, well, we might as well, busy year, we might as well just work 24 hours a day, maybe 22 hours a day. Like, actually, no, that's not a great idea. But on the other side of that, like the folks who, it's an excuse for them, to not do anything. They look at you the same way in the negative or kind of hater mindset. Like what you pointed out, that it's not a bad experience or miserable experience for you, that you're doing these things with your kids, you're teaching them how to lift weights, you're going on an adventure. Like you can do this too. It's not limited to anybody. I would love to be asked those questions, like how you're going about these things, because it's not really a freaking mystery to be solved. You just have to take the action and do it yourself. Like the freedom is there. Like, and if you want it, go for it. It's around, like, we have stuff that we've impacted here, masks in schools and stuff like that. And most of the people we talk about, hate it. They don't like it, but they won't say anything about it. Well, we're going to the school district. You want to go? And yeah, they come along. Or the guy in the store, I don't have a mask on in the store, and you're supposed to wear a mask there. And this happened multiple times. The guy passed me, and he was walking with his girlfriend, his wife, whoever. And he has it on. I see him again in another aisle, and he's got it off. I'm like, yeah. Like, I mean, we kind of, one for another gives you permission or the motivation to do it, however that works. But that kind of, like, it's in the same sense, spreading a similar thing, that it's okay to push back a little. It's okay to take it. Like, they're pushing out these controls, and a lot of them don't have any real basis or reason that you can really come up with, other than their control reaches, and it's a step-by-step process of taking stuff away from you. You can say no. You can push back.
I had a wicked feeling of deja vu, and I was wondering, like, why I knew that story. I had the luxury of spending some time with Colton the other day, him and his family, and we were talking about that. We were just talking about, like, if one person stands up, 2, 3, 4, 5, like the second one's the most important one, because when you're by yourself, you're the weirdo. Once that second dude shows up, well, now it's a thing. And now 3, 4, 5. Yeah, well, but then you're cool. And now there's 3 of us. And look at it, we're doing just fine. But I'm sitting like, why did I know that story? But here's the thing. I went down, I was hanging out with Colton, his beautiful wife, children. It was just a great time with the family. So thanks again, brother. It was a really good time. And in that moment, I realized how normal it was. And I was thinking back, 3 weeks ago, I was with Anthony and his family. And it's just so normal for me to walk into a home that's operating like that. And the same, if you gents came to my home, there would be no figuring things out. You wouldn't walk in and well, who are you masked? Do I need to be masked? Are you going to check my vaccination status? Are we allowed to sit near each other? Can we shake hands? Do we high five, or do we just wave? In some homes, they're living to that level. And they're at the point now where they can't connect. The home is divided. People are living in fear. And that's the last thing I saw within your homes. And you can't fake that shit. You can come on Oak and Rock and I'm a leader of my family. Masculinity, get Phil on here, intensity. But then if you see that man and you see him out of the store, you see him out with his family, and there's just fear in their eyes, and the kids are cowering, or the spouse is like totally disconnected and hates him. You're like, bro, what's the point of coming onto the channel and to put this stuff out to the online world if you're not truly living it within? If you're not actualizing it, but you're chasing that appearance of success, that's another great act you could take right now. Stop trying to act like you're okay and go become okay. Get the fear out of your house. And that's a great thing where men want to know how. How do we break out of this funk? And I'll pitch that to you guys. Like, how do we break those who've been swallowing and drinking the Kool-Aid? They have the vaccination, they've been having the mask, and they finally see what's going on. Maybe the Canadian thing. They're like, all right, how do I break out of this routine? Because we're in the routine of go to work, come home, go to youth sports, come back, and that's it. And that all got shut down. And now we're in the routine of come home, be scared, stay away from each other, play our video games. Don't worry about going out and seeing anybody. It's not safe. Well, how do you go back to living life again? How do you go back to living life in a country where the country doesn't know if it wants to be open or closed?
That's the question.
I'm looking directly at you, Anthony.
No, listen, man, I think that when it comes down to it, right, you have to find like-minded people. Actually, not like-minded people, but people who live their lives the same way, right? Have the same values, live by the same principles. We talk about it with parenting all the time, right? I would never allow my kids when they were younger to hang out with a parent who physically hits their kids, because I know their kids are going to try to hit mine, right? They're taught to communicate through violence. It's a language they learn. So I think the same thing when we become adults, when we become men, we have to find, we actively have to seek out other good men to spend our time with, to have conversations with, because that's how we both grow. That's how we both learn. And the sad reality is you can't save everybody, right? That there's people that you can't help. And I think you have to acknowledge that to a degree. And I'm not saying it to be mean, but if we look at what's going on in the world, there's a division. We all see it, and there are people who will openly want to hurt you. They would want to hurt your family. They want to take your money from you, cut off money. They want to see you be put in jail if you don't pay your taxes. These are all real things. There's people who want you thrown in jail if you smoke a piece of vegetation that they don't approve of. And they want you in a cell, and they want you to stay there and think about your crime. So I think it's important who you associate with. And like I said, this division has been going on a long time, right? This is it. The people in charge, for them to continually have power over us, they have to keep the slaves fighting, right? It has to be one side versus the other. This way, the focus is never on them. So if they can keep people engaged into hating each other because of a political ideology or a religious ideology, they keep the two slaves at each other's throat. They're never going to see where the real abuse is coming from. And that leads to what we see now, right? We have all these people who are super emotional. They're hyper and reactive to every little thing that goes on because they have no connection. They have no real world connection. They have nobody they can sit down with and have a real conversation and say, hey, man, I need help. What did you do? Can you help me? Or they say, hey, do you need help? This stuff doesn't happen often. I mean, I see it all the time, right? This is the life I live. These are the men I hang out with. It's a network, and it's how we get better and get stronger. But a lot of people don't have that. So I think the more we talk about it, just like parenting and peaceful parenting, the more fathers will raise their kids in a peaceful manner, raise stronger and more powerful children, more resilient and courageous kids. Same thing with dads, right? We just have to have these conversations. We have to be the example. And I think people will pick up on it, especially fathers, because who really wants to feel like a sack of shit, right? Who really wants to feel weak? Who wants to be afraid all the time? Who wants to feel like their money's going to get cut off? They might lose their house. They might lose their job. That nobody can survive in that environment. If that's what your thoughts are all the time. If, like Colton said before, you go to the news for your information. I couldn't even imagine putting on a TV and letting that stuff into my mind. I would literally just turn into a puddle of mush. It would not be good for my brain, for my family's well-being. And you see a lot of people get sucked in. So that was my rant.
It's also with that when it goes to the connection and the unity, of men coming together, just again, not the same. They don't think the same, but they're like-minded. I don't think the same as either of you, but we overlap enough in the right areas to where we can connect. And we're like, yeah, I'm with you. But like I wore sleeves today and Anthony's never worn sleeves. Like, so we make our choices every day, but another thing is the way we use things. So when we go on social media, all three of us here do not go and just shit post and troll other people and talk shit. We go on to connect, we go on to spread our message, and we go on to educate. And there's an entertainment aspect. I mean, we all watch things that are funny or interesting or whatever. So there is entertainment there, but it's not we don't leave there negative. And I wanted to give a shout out to Corey Andona. He said, I saw you live, hopped in. Shout out to you, brother. I was deployed with Corey. We both served in the military. And by using social media as a tool, not only did we connect, but him and his lady, they run Wolf Runners Homestead and Prepping. And so I found another resource that was teaching me different things about one that's actually quite relevant is gardening. I want to start a garden with my daughter. I want to go out there, I want to grow own vegetables and do things like that. I'm like, hey, Corey, what do you guys know? He gave me immediate advice like that. So now when you guys see me sharing the photos of the garden, you see me sharing the vegetables, that's going to happen in the future. And you're going to be like, oh, I wish I did that. You know how I did that? I went on and said, hey guys, I don't know shit about gardening. And somebody who does rolled in and said, hey, try this, 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 and this. And I'm like, awesome. And I want to do it. My kid's going to think I'm a superhero because I build these things. I know all these things. And come to find out, I just have a network. I have a network that is conducive to our growth and our connection. And so we all have access to these tools. But instead of taking the hammer and hitting yourself in the fucking head, and then you leave social media and you're like, I have a headache and I'm so depressed and I'm negative. Man, look at what you could have done. You could have gone on there and said, hey guys, I'm in a shit ton of debt. Hey guys, I'm fighting with my spouse daily. Hey guys, I'm fat. Whatever your demon is, whatever your next obstacle is, you could say, hey, who knows how to help me out of this hole? And then you start the process. And then you start to see others who are growing. And guess what? When you're no longer fat, when you're no longer in debt, when you're no longer at each other's throats within the home, now you can make all those moves you wanted to make. Now you're in a position where you are more free to move, to groove, to do the things that you want to do. And you've got more skill sets. And when you kill those base level, impediments to you being where you want to be, now you can go to the advanced level. Hey, I killed my debt. Now how can I invest? Hey, I lost that weight. Now can we go on a 5K? Can we get the experience of going whitewater rafting or climbing a mountain or whatever you want to go do? You can now go do all those great things as well. So it's not just killing the fat. It's also putting yourself in a position where you're physically able to live. It's not just killing the debt, but now you can invest in moving somewhere else or getting another job that maybe pays you less, but now you need less money. But that job is half the hours. So now you're free for your kids, you're free for your spouse, whatever it is. The stress, maybe you and your spouse are fighting about that. You can get rid of it. You can control all of that. But you have to start using these tools as they're meant to be used instead of how you've been told to use them. Because those who tell you to sit and waste your time, they're the ones who are using you. They made you the tool. You don't want to be the fucking tool.
Don't be a tool.
Be the tool. It's a good plug for the Fraternity of Excellence because that's what we do a lot of in there. And that's the part I wish where as a guy, I would love for guys to come ask, acquaintances or people I know through my kids' schools or whatever in my town. Like, hey, how'd you lose weight? Hey, you have chickens or the garden. Like, give me one looking for a tip or a way to get started. Like, within FoE, that's commonplace like stuff that is like, it's not strange now. It's just strange in the dynamic of interacting with other people outside of FoE, because within that's so much of what we do every day, where you see some like, how did you build that deadlift platform? Like, I saw you have chickens. Like, how many guys I've helped, or answered questions for around,
Yeah, you helped me.
Yeah, chicken coops and what to do and stuff like that.
I remember I asked, I was like, how do I get my chickens to go in the coop at night? First
night, you open the door.
20 responses.
Just let them
in. Yeah.
For real though.
So when you look at it, go
ahead. The overall thing into our emergency question here that we have is somewhat related. Like the mask example, maybe, basically giving a guy permission not to wear a mask, but getting people to be, comfortable with being uncomfortable in these situations. Like, having an opinion that doesn't have to tote the line of CNN and, news and stuff like that. Like getting them to turn off their cable. Like, I haven't had cable in over a decade. I think that's not to my detriment whatsoever. Or my family's, having permission to be able to voice their opinion outside of, I guess what the government is, a less of being for provider. Like, you have to break that structure. Like, they're not our mother, for our best interest and to feed us and give us money, to seek independence, to be,
That's
have
the thing,
some
anonymity.
talk
about prepping. It's always doomsday preppers. Remember that show? They would have a lot of really cool advice. They would have a lot of really cool things they're doing to survive, but they always made it this weird, really fringe person. It's like somebody who's tweaking out a little and they've been living under some wires for too long.
Yeah.
And it's we have this weird notion that prepping or getting yourself away from the system is something weirdos do. That's something that, oh, okay, man, you're looking to take on the world, dude. And Anthony and I have shared this, shooting guns is awesome. Defending your home is awesome. Like, you should definitely, there's a lot of things you should be able to do. I'm trying to keep this YouTube friendly. There's a lot of things that you should do, to put yourself in a position where you can defend your home, defend yourself, grow your own things, and just survive without the system. But if you think for a second that you're going to take on the government and you're going to have your last stand at the Alamo, bro, they have people with Xbox controllers who can just fly a little bomb into your house. They could literally, somebody somewhere can flip a switch and you've lost all internet, all phone, all service. So you're not going to win that way. But what you can win is getting yourself away from the system without ever even bringing up a peep. They don't even notice you. You kind of just work your way to that direction. And there's a lot of things you can do that aren't as fringe and weird as like, I don't even fucking know. It's like some of the shit you've seen, like throwing flashbangs into your living room and screaming at your kids. What do you do? What do you do? What do you do? Like, that's not what we're talking here, you know, but again,
Run!
groups,
Yeah, like-
you know, like I was saying, go ahead.
I'm like the furthest thing from like the defiant, person who's like a prepper. I'm just like a dad who has kids and a family and happens to like, prepared for a situation or whatever. I get prepared and I move on with my life, like a lot of people live in that kind of world all the time, being, the weird prepper side, I guess, or.
You know why it's not normal though? Because it's not normal to be independent. You said that word and that stuck out to me. That's not a normal thing, to be free from the system.
The basic level of being prepared for stuff to happen isn't even normal. Like people I could think of or encountered with, like 8 out of 10 are not. Like this was a big freaking surprise, they're not even ready for a 2-day power outage. Like,
Well, they're still getting surprised.
Yeah, everything that keeps happening is still a surprise. It's a big thing. It's emotional. It's a reaction.
Yeah.
It's a whole thing, and they spread it throughout their family, and that causes other issues. But
Well, like
how many
Zac
women are
said
beaten
before,
weekly?
with the abusive relationship, right?
Exactly.
It's like a woman
Yeah.
who her husband beats her and then says, "Oh no, I'm sorry," and then she doesn't. Then next time he beats the shit out of her, she's like, "What the hell's going on?" No, you knew
Just
it
as
was coming.
surprised. Weekly
Yeah.
for years. Oh, I'm still surprised. You're not surprised. You
It-
know it. You're
and
just
that-
not. You think it's fear that keeps them? Do you think it's fear that keeps people on the system? Because, well, what do you do when you're outside of the 9 to 5 normal routine, in debt, running to children's sports? What happens when you have to be alone with yourself and rely on yourself?
Yeah.
I think a lot of it's fear and kind of being trapped in their own little box, like with the mask thing. Like they need permission to push back or say something that they're not comfortable with. And there's a side of that they just want to live their comfortable, happy life. But with our school, if you put in a mask mandate, if most times you go there and it was lifted, you might see 1 or 2 kids voluntarily wearing their mask. But as soon as they raise the mandate, all of the parents who are not comfortable with a little bit of conflict or a little raise my hand and speak up about it or ask a couple questions, they send little Johnny and whatever to school with their mask on, even though they don't like it, even though like inside it makes them a little bit uncomfortable and they wish they didn't have to do that.
So let me ask you this. If you're a parent who's going to send your kid to do something they don't want to do and you're going to make them do it anyway, why are you getting mad at the government for doing the same thing to you?
Yeah, it's no different.
It's not.
No, one just doesn't directly impact them, even as a parent. Like it's a kind of a selfish aspect of it. But they're not protecting their kid. They're not standing up for the kid. Like the kid can be at school and raise their hand and say, "I don't want to do this," but I mean, he's going to get in trouble. He's going to get kicked out of school. Like it's the same slap that we're going to get from the government. But like I think that's you have that abusive relationship. I entirely agree with go do your own thing. Like go the other way. Live your life kind of as you were laying out just a minute ago. Yeah. But I guess on one hand, I hope that like it's like all of those wives of a rally, like of an abusive relationship, standing up and saying like, no, you can't do this to me anymore. It's not okay. This is the power and control you can no longer have. And this isn't how we're going to live. It's not right.
Well, what's funny about it is these are things we tell our kids when they're young, right? We tell our kids, don't hit other people. If your friends are mean to you, don't play with them, right? If they hit you or if they're bullies, stay away. But as we grow into adults, it's like we almost praise it. We're like, no, take more of my money through taxation, right? Control my life more. Tell me when I can go out. Tell me what I can do. If I disobey, lock my money down, right? So it's almost like a lot of people, they invite it because, like you were saying, Colton, they are afraid. But we know right from wrong, right? We know what it is to be a good man. We know what it is to live with virtue and to have values and be moral. But for some reason, there's a huge disconnect, and it's probably because of fear. But when people get older, they submit more easily to tyranny or authority than a child does, right? Children have more of a free spirit and more rebellious than most people I know. And it's because they're not conditioned with that fear yet, right? Kids, they have a natural instinct to be kids, to be free. So I think important thing for dad, especially dads, to recognize when things get tough, when things get bad, when there's fear of losing a job, if you don't have enough money, right? The one thing that you can control in all this chaos is your mindset. It's how you see things, right? They can't control your mind unless you let them. It's the same thing with your kids. If you want your kids, when things are hard and you want your kids to flourish and thrive through these moments, they have to have the right mindset. They have to be thinking that they're going to get through this, right? Because look at dad. Dad knows we're going to get through it. They have to think that things are going to be okay, right? There's going to be another side to this. If they don't, that's when they control your mind, right? That's when they keep you frozen in fear. They keep your kids frozen in fear. And as a father, or even as a parent, that's a lot of pressure. That's a lot of stress. And unfortunately, what we see, and we saw this through the COVID lockdowns, the parents take it out on the kids. And now they're beating on the kids more. They're yelling at the kids more. And the whole family environment is completely destroyed. And to be honest, I think that's part of why they did what they did, right? Because it makes no logical sense to lock down a whole economy the way they did, unless they really wanted to destroy the economy and destroy families.
And it's when you think about that, I was trying to think of the right terminology for it. It's not desensitization. It's just a gradual decay of the revolutionary spirit within their soul. It's just, you start out a child, you're free, and then daycare, you're stripped from your parents and you're controlled. Elementary school, you're told what you can do, when you can go to the bathroom, what words you're allowed to use. You have to sit at the desk for 8 hours a day, and you do that for 5 more years, and you're still away from your parents. By the time you're in middle school, you're starting to get your first wave of kind of growing up. Maybe it's the hormones, maybe it's just, you're older, you're more capable. So that's when you start to see a little rebellion. But now you've also accepted my parents don't care. And so you don't have the support in the family. You've been basically allowed to just go and do your thing and be controlled by the school system. But now you start to have that flash in the pan, and that gets crushed. But at least for me, it did. I was a rebellious, and it started in middle school, and they just shut it down. And then comes high school. And that's where you see a lot of courses can be taken. You can't really predict them. It could be, you can rise to the occasion. You can just go numb. You can just get by and float through. It doesn't matter. What you don't see a lot of, though, is rebellion. You see a lot of resistance. You see a lot of the graffiti. You'll see a lot of all right, let's start smoking. But you don't really see direct resistance. Like this system is broken. They'll argue with teachers. They'll break rules, but they won't fight to change the system itself. And at that point, and then they join the workforce, and they're done. Then they just head down, do your thing, stay out of the way, keep your paycheck. What if we instilled and fostered that? Like when I said, Colton, when you were talking about this, the kid getting in trouble and getting kicked out of school, and I said, good, that wasn't just a Jocko quote. If my kid stands up for something and they're like, you need to leave, you're fucking right, he does. Because he's not going to take this. He's not going to lower his standard, and I don't want him to. I don't ever want him to go just browbeat and hang his head. Yes, master, I'll do what you say. Yes, master government, daddy government, go ahead and lead me more. You fucking kidding me?
You got to drop the accent.
That's my accent. That's just how it works. You run it, and you start to see these freaking situations where the kids are just sad, man. You see really, really sad kids because now they can't even go to the school to see their friends. Their friends only have half a face. These kids' spirits are being broken, and the only one that can save them is their family, and their family is broken because their parents broke them. It's a shitty cycle. And as parents, I think now is the time. If Canada can do the shit that Canada did, why can't parents do the shit they want to do within their home? If Trudeau, whatever the fuck his name is, can say, we're going to go beat the shit out of truck drivers, you can't go and speak to your child? He's like, oh, but he's the prime. Why do you think so low of yourself? You're a father. That title should mean something. That title should mean more than prime minister. You have the greatest role in these people's lives. That's an elected official. Fuck you. People like you got up there. You, though, you're with that individual from birth until you die. Your entire life is with that child. It is a life sentence. And you don't think it's good enough to try to put any effort into it. That is insane to me. I think now is the perfect time for men, especially fathers, who are sitting on that fringe, in the middle, like, all right, something's not right. I don't know what. It's time for them to act. It's time for them to foster that back in their kids, foster that flame back within themselves, take back a little taste of that revolutionary spirit. You're never going to get back your ultimate, what you could have had, but you can get some of it back. And you can put that into your kids, and you can let them stop losing at least. Don't beat anything else out of them. Fan the flames. Get that shit to come back before it's snuffed out. Unless you find them sitting in the position where they're being told what to do by daddy government, and you're no longer in charge because you worked yourself out of a job. You abdicated the throne to who? Somebody who doesn't give a fuck about you or your family. That doesn't sit right with me.
Yeah, well, revolution does not have to be, when you say the revolutionary spirit, that doesn't have to be anything extreme or out of the ordinary. That could be as simple as having your kids understand that they don't have to fit into a sick society. Right? How many of us, or how many people do you know? And I know kids like this, not my kids, but I know there's and sometimes my kids, I see that they want to be a part of something, right? They want to fit in. I think it's a natural human desire. It's tribalism. But how many kids want to be in a system that is constantly abusing them, that is sick? And now we're starting to see it in society with adults. How many adults want to be in this system where they're getting abused every day, where they're getting treated badly, and they want to belong to it, right? That they can't open their eyes and say, hey man, this isn't right. This isn't how life's supposed to be. And instead of taking a stance and maybe breaking away from that pack and going and finding other people, they stay confined, right? They stay in those prisons, those mental prisons. So I think with our kids, we have to embrace that revolutionary spirit when we see it in them, right? We have to let them know that it's okay, that it's normal to want to be part of the group, but the values of that group need to be judged. You can't just want to belong to something to belong, right? It has to be a quality thing versus quantity. And I think that's important that we teach our kids, because a lot of parents, not only do they not teach it to their kids, they don't live it, right? They belong to maybe churches, or they belong to a political party that their values don't align with, and they just want to be a part of something. So they sacrifice who they are to belong. And I think that's something that we have to, that I would say individuality, but that moral courage in our kids to be strong individuals, because that's how you get strong groups. If you have groups that only the stronger and on top with the power, you get what we currently see in government, and people getting abused, the people in a lower order getting abused. If you build groups with strong individuals, those are the groups that are going to thrive. Those are the peer groups that your friends will be in. I mean, that your kids will be in, and they're going to advance and they're going to have success.
And the folks I referred to who are just want to be comfortable, they need to work on getting uncomfortable a little bit. So ultimately in your life, you can kind of retain some of that comfort, is the whole background to what you just said. Because it's just going to perpetuate to our kids. That's how a lot of, through the school system and how it was previously, laid out. That's kind of how it looks like you get there. The whole system is designed to kind of put you in that place. It'd be a big government story here, but compliance people are ideal in most of the situations. And working with your kids, like me being raised in my schooling and all that stuff was no different, in that some of us might have a certain like rebellious or like outlaw side to us. Some of us might be more
Outlaw.
I haven't heard that term in a while. I've heard pirate. Pirate's been the recent one. Outlaw, that's a good one, man.
Yeah, go pirates. Some might be more, pliable to being complacent with everything they're told to do, and following along, good little boys and girls. But with our kids, the same thing. Like you want them to behave in school, and you want to watch their peer groups and who they're associated with, and following things that are trendy. Things that are trendy from when I was a kid and I was in school are a little different now and have acronyms, at least the way I look at a lot of it. And I don't see that as some of that has a lot of consequence later on, but not following that and having kind of the mental like wherewithal, I guess, to think, is this okay? Like, is this who I want to associate with? Does this line up with my values and my family and everything I've been, taught so far, wherever those come from? Is I think it's super important, like for my kids and going to school and having issues. I was talking like they have a Lions Not Cheap hat. They wore it to school, and the administrators like, this isn't appropriate. I make sure they know, like, I'm okay. You ask them, why isn't this appropriate? What's so offensive about this? Everything that they tell you isn't, black and white like that. It's okay to ask these questions or, want a more understanding. A person to, in authority, you don't have to be beaten down just because they say X, Y, or Z. It's okay to, no, I don't think that's okay. I don't think that's right.
Yeah, but
maybe
how many kids, Colton, are trained in the home to do that?
no,
I was
to
just
say
about to
that
ask,
or
if
to,
you
to
allow them
have
to say
permission
that to
from
you.
their father to even do that, they're afraid they're going to get they think they're going to get in trouble. Even if they wouldn't, and then maybe, there's a lot of cases and situations that could happen with, say the boy or girl comes back and tells their dad, or maybe they get a slap on the wrist for what they were doing. And it's actually not a bad situation. And what they're asking about isn't, topically bad or being rude or disrespectful. They still have that fear. And in a lot of those cases, I hope, mom or dad would be like, I agree with you. It should be okay to do that. And they go and get involved and talk with the school or, push back themselves. But it comes back to fear on most of these things. But being okay, getting a little uncomfortable doing that stuff, and also empowering your kids, that conversations that we have, those conversations I have with my kids, with stuff that isn't okay, and stuff that is okay in school. That's changed by the age they are as well. Like, I mean, you can apply that to a lot of stuff. Like, it's not okay for somebody to touch you and do this. It's not okay for somebody to talk to you like this. If somebody does, you need to let me know. If somebody does, you need to tell this person, like, in a lot of ways to go with it. But I don't know how much every other person or however, the average person has those types of discussions, but putting the power to your kids to not be trapped in these kind of little boxes and to set that mentality up front that, like, it is okay to, not just follow along and, think for yourself a little bit. I'm hoping long term, and the way I raise my kids with this stuff, that it's going to go a long way. And when they're, my age or in their 20s or whatever, that's kind of, that cycle is going to be a little different. It's not a lot different than the peaceful parenting side of stop beating your freaking kids. A lot of people beat their kids because they were like, that's what they know. So, different kind of topic, but somewhat psychologically and through parenting, it works a lot of the same way. I'm breaking a little bit of what I was, taught. Like, I got in trouble for a lot of that stuff when I was a kid, like asking those questions, or in some cases, maybe I wasn't completely respectful or did it in a different way or something, but.
Well, even if you're disrespectful, I don't think that's a reason to hit a child.
No,
I'm just saying that's my opinion. If my kids disrespected me, I wouldn't be like, oh, now I can hit them.
No, I mean,
Game
like,
on,
pushing
motherfuckers.
back in school, or like in a situation where you're a teen or something and you have kind of an authority, in a sport or a school or something like that. But yeah, I apply that same kind of thought process to the spanking of the kids. And that's what it was when I was a kid. Well, what if I do that with my kids and I don't tell them any of the stuff and I don't empower them to, break a little control from their life? They're going to have the same thing, and it's going to be exponential. It's going to get worse.
Yeah, no, I was just going to say, the crazy thing with spanking is right away we go to it as being a physical act and that we're physically hurting our kids. The psychological fear is what keeps the kids in control, right? It's not the physical. Yeah, the physical hitting, it hurts. But have you ever seen young kids play fight, especially young boys? Like I remember my son. I was like, oh my god, how are you guys not dead? So I don't think it's well, I know it's not about the physical pain, right? That's not why I say don't spank your kids. Obviously, yeah, you shouldn't do it, but it's the psychological fear that you instill in them. It's being a person who's supposed to protect them, who's supposed to provide for them and create a stable home, is breaking that boundary by conditioning them with fear, by threats. Even if they don't hit them, just saying, "Oh, you want a spanking?" How many kids have heard that growing up? And then you talk to other men, and you're like, you have to set strong boundaries with your wife or with your friends and people who abuse you. You do, and you need to start with your kid first and foremost. If your kid has a boundary, Dad, don't hit me. Follow through.
It's interesting when you look at the broader photo, or not photo, but like the broader image of the picture that we're painting. It's like we're trying to help you better connect with yourself and your children. What's the counterpoint? But the government didn't say I could. That's your counterpoint. That's it. That's the counterpoint. I'm just thinking like, who could argue with any of this? And I realized in that exact moment, there's one good one. And not good, but like there's one that they could use, and it's, well, I'm not allowed to do that. Think about that. All the things we're advocating of freedom, connection, peace, happiness. I'm not allowed to have that. The government didn't issue that to me. Like, you're in the fucking military. Like, they didn't give you permission to do it. We do have a question in the chat. What is a good alternative to use instead of spanking? It's a great question.
Are we going for another hour on the live stream?
So we do have a few videos on it, but I would say really quick for me, talking. Just say in that moment, walk away from whatever it is. Understand that the frustration you're feeling is your frustration. You probably had other things happening that day, or maybe things you wanted to do, or in your head, it was a nice romantic dinner and now the kid's having a meltdown and you're mad because that beautiful thing you wanted to give the family didn't happen. And so you're just like, it's too much. Like, just sit and be quiet. It's not the kid doing something wrong. The kid's being a kid. You're frustrated or whatever it is. And if the argument, or if anybody wants to present the argument that you're going to teach them a lesson, that's not how that works. If you're teaching a lesson, you have to teach. If you're trying to beat a lesson to them, understand that they're not learning not to do that thing. They're learning if they do that, if they get caught doing that thing, they're going to get hurt. You're also teaching them that somebody's allowed to hurt. You know what? We do have another hour.
Yeah.
I got to end that right there, man. I almost started rolling.
Corey pulled you in. Yep. No, it's an excellent question, man. It really is.
Corey's a good dude. Spent a lot of time floating in the middle of fucking nowhere with him. And so it's cool. We were kind of talking on the side. I dropped a link to his prepping group, and who wants to talk homesteading or prepping. It's solid. I'm in it. It's cool. I'm learning a lot. But importantly, it goes to show the value. When you are who you say you are, people can come out of the woodworks, man. People come out of wherever. So people coming out of the military now, if they're like, oh yeah, he used to beat the shit out of his kids all the time, I'd easily be exposed. But when you live that life, dude, bring it on. You want your friends to come out. You want to share this. And by now us, and now with him in the chat, when you have those conversations with people, they can sit and talk to their spouse, or he can go and talk to whomever. And now maybe that dude starts to think on it. It's like, oh, that's a different approach, but even now you can see it. I'll bring up his next one. That's a great way to look at it. I've never looked at it as me being frustrated, being the root cause. Thanks, brother. And that's the thing. For so many men, speaking about fatherhood, parenting, what is discipline? We see I'm disciplining a child. Everybody goes to like beating them or forcing them to do something. Very few understand to put your child in a position where they can develop grit, as opposed to, I'm trying to raise a soldier and corporal punishment is what they use in the military, so I'll use that. Well, we're not raising soldiers. We're raising children. And your fear, and not yours, Corey, or anybody that's listening that might have it, the fear most parents have is that their child will be weak. And again, we had a great discussion with Brandon Murata that's dropping on Monday. Check it out,
That
because
dude blew
we
your mind.
addressed exactly that. Like this is just a great ad for that. But that discussion, we go into that. Like what is that fear and what are they afraid of? And you don't want a weak child. No man wants a weak son. No father wants a weak daughter who'll be taken advantage of. No man wants weakness anywhere. But that projection of strength and hardness, it's fake. It's not. You're not actualizing it. You're appearing it. If you're a dude sitting cleaning a shotgun on your porch when your daughter comes back on a date, you don't have a good enough relationship with her to talk about her relationships in her life. You're afraid that she's not strong enough to take care of herself, so you've got to threaten and shoot a teenage boy. How fucking weak is that? I get a gun, I'll shoot you. Bro, you're not going to shoot him. He knows you're weak. You're not going to go to fucking jail because somebody brought your daughter home 5 minutes late. So just stop the bullshit. Let's stop pretending. You know what? Go talk to your daughter about dating. Talk to her about sex. Talk to her about the type of people that would be good for her to bring into her life and then get a little more intimate with. Talk about those things. Get to really know them. It's uncomfortable. I'm sorry. I didn't know you were a fucking pussy. We're fathers. Be a man. Let your balls drop and just do the hard things. That's what we're talking about here.
You okay?
I feel better. I do feel better.
That's good, man. It's always good.
Yeah, it's great. It's true. I get that joke all the time. My daughter's 13. Beautiful girl. So the shotgun thing is always around, and oftentimes it's a opening for a conversation, and it's usually intense, and I offend somebody because they're like, "Hey, I was just fucking joking about your shotgun." But I forgot what I was gonna say.
It was a good role, though.
Yeah, I don't remember now. My bad.
No worries, Colton. We said a lot of good stuff tonight.
We did.
And
Colton,
we almost had Zac rolling for another hour.
Dude, I almost, man, I could feel it. All the list of things we've spoken about, but it's good. It's good to get it off the chest. It's good to just breathe it out. Oh, he's back.
He got
All
it.
right.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I made myself laugh and forgot what I was going to say. It always comes back to being a me problem. Like, it's the same thing with hitting your kids and getting frustrated, to partially answer his question some more. All of those reactions were, some type of me problem. And one of them, the shotgun thing, you might see as protecting. I don't know how that really goes, to be of a beneficial use to clean your guns, and because your daughter's she's gonna like boys. It's how we all got here. It's gonna happen. And all of that, the reaction stuff for not hitting your kids, I learned quickly that it was all a me problem. And most of the arguments or anything that are going to be a reactive thing for me are typically a me problem. There's a whole another solution to it, outside of just kids. Apply that shit anywhere. But for the daughter thing, we are the example. We should be driving, the type of man she's gonna, or attract or be around, and that isn't going to be a bad, horrible situation for her in her life. So,
do you have something, Anthony?
Yeah, no, I was just going to say that I think if you are hitting your kid, if this is how you parent, if you spank, if you're using any type of physical violence, right, you can stop tonight. You can stop right when you get off listening to us. And I think that's important to note, because you, as a father, you literally have the power to change your child's life, right? And you have to make a choice. Are you going to do the best that you can, honestly, with yourself? Are you going to be a man with integrity and live by what you say you're doing? If you really care about your kids, just stop hitting them. It's the first step. After that, doesn't matter what happens next, right? And it really doesn't, because that then comes parenting. Then you have to be a dad. You have to fit your role, your duty, do your job, and you have to be their father. You have to lead them. You have to be a good leader. So remove the physical violence. That's the first step. Everything else will fall into place. You'll have a better relationship. You have more connection, and then you can have discussions about, the silly things, right? How to get them to put their shoes on, how to get them to eat dinner, the things that shouldn't be getting you upset. Like Colton said, it's a me problem. if your kids aren't following every order, it's not their fault. It's yours. And you just got to improve.
And it's a wonderful place to go. You know,
Totally
life.
is.
I mean, we had a podcast today, dropping Monday. Make sure you check it out. We had I just coached my son for 2 hours at the baseball field. He came back and did this. And dude, tomorrow morning I'll see them. We'll hang out. They'll come back from school. We'll kick it. It's such a good life when you're not walking on eggshells in your own home. When you can actually be in your kingdom. And you know, a lot of men are like, I'm the king. Well, the king runs his kingdom. And if your kingdom's messed up, you got to stop pointing at the people who are like, stop looking down. Just go in the mirror. And if you're having a hard time, reach out. You are not less than for asking for help. That's literally what Anthony and I are doing with this channel. That's what men like Colton, you know, inside the fraternity of excellence, he's a team leader for a reason. The man lives it. Like I said, I was hanging out with his family the other day. The man lives it through and through. Anthony's family lives it through and through. I've hidden my family from you guys. You guys got to come visit so you can say that about me and hang out with my kids because they're cool as shit, man.
Soon.
So it's one of those things, dude. And I want to give a huge shout out to Corey for just jumping in the chat and just rolling with it and sharing some things, as well as Tim and Ben. I mean, it's great to see men that are looking to actually put themselves and invest the time to learning something, whether it's watching a channel like this or just having the discussion. Ben came across through the cigar room. So Justin Copeland and Corey Reagan are running that. We had those guys on here. Check that video out. But this is normalizing the discussion that's going to normalize peace within the home, which is my hope as a revolutionary American, that it will normalize getting away from the system. It'll normalize following the rat race that has everybody hating everybody. It'll normalize peace and connection within the home and brightness instead of the darkness that's out in the world and creeping inside and dividing the relationships, which you're supposed to be relying upon and which is going to help you grow to be the best person you can be. All that stuff happens when you just pull away the violence. You start to love yourself, and then you can love those around you. And it's just a great thing. It's just a great place to live. And so, gentlemen, if you tuned in, if you like what's going on, obviously like, subscribe, share, do all that great stuff. But more importantly than all of that, that's cool for our analytics. I'm talking about your life, though. Take the knowledge that you gained here and apply it in your life. If you can do that, you will change your world, which will help change mine. Because my kids will be growing up with your kids. My kids will be living in the future your kids are living in. And I'm busting my ass to fucking make it a better place. And so are these two gentlemen. But the more we can have doing this, the bigger the dent we can make, the faster we can make this happen. And maybe we can catch it before we hit the event horizon where shit gets really fucking weird. So thank you for tuning in. Colton, thank you so much for your fucking time, man. I know you're a busy dude, so thanks for sitting down with us. Anthony, another one down, man.
Yes, sir.
Let's go.
Good stuff.
Another episode of Oak and Rock Fatherhood. You guys stay well. I look forward to hearing of your growth. We will be back next Wednesday with another killer topic, just getting after it. And then obviously we've got content Monday, Wednesday, Friday dropping throughout the week. So just don't miss it. Subscribe, get after it. But until then, you guys stay present and take care.